This cat wanted to drink. It first knocked over a bottle of wine, then put an ashtray under it. It tried its best to open the lid, but it took a lot of effort to fill the glass. Finally, it sat down to enjoy the wine. Actually, the cat was the owner of this house. He was a very rich man. His life was surrounded by money. That day, Tom went to a mysterious pet store. He was going to buy a cat as a birthday present for his daughter. On the way back, he received a phone call from his subordinate. This subordinate had secretly interfered in his work. Knowing everything his subordinate had done, he immediately fired him. At this moment, the lightning rod exploded. Tom unfortunately fell off the terrace. His whole body was hanging in the air. He begged his subordinate to pull him up. However, this subordinate had no intention of saving Tom. He wanted Tom to fall. Fortunately, the cat's cage got caught in the iron bar. Tom quickly swung in and broke the glass, so he fell inside the building. When waking up, Tom discovered that he had turned into a cat, and his body was in a coma. At this time, the pet shop owner appeared and told him that, if you don't swap in time, you will forever have to stay in this cat's body. That night, Tom's wife took him home. He wanted to tell his family about his true identity. He ran to find a pen to open the cap. First, he tried to bite with his teeth. After trying for a while, however, when he opened it, he couldn't write. After that, he had to take out all his identity papers and leave them in front of the door. But his wife misunderstood that he just wanted to play, so he was locked outside. His plan had failed. Tom wanted to drink alcohol to relieve his sadness. But normally he just needed to reach out his hand to take the wine bottle. However, this time, although he tried his best to open it, it couldn't work. After a few jumps up and down, the cabinet door also opened. He could drink freely. However, this cat's drinking capacity wasn't very good. After getting drunk, he urinated all over the house. The smell of its urine wafted through the house. And it also kept lamenting. This wine was heavy. After that, Tom went to the trash can. When seeing his current form, he was extremely shocked. Eventually, Tom even hugged the trash can and danced a romantic dance. The next day, when seeing the cat food, Tom was very nauseous. Fortunately, his daughter named Rebecca liked this cat very much, and named it Fuzzy Pants. After all, what did Tom have to do in order that he could return to his body? Because of an incident, this billionaire's soul entered the body of a cat. And at this time, he was adopted by his daughter. However, at this moment, his ex-wife came to visit the house and brought 2 dogs. Tom was afraid to run around the house. Fortunately, his daughter came to save him in time. So the 2 dogs were chained together. Tom wanted to use a wool roll to put his name. However, when Tom heard his ex-wife slandered him, he was so angry that he ran her branded bag and urinated on it. After doing so, he purposely gestured for her to see. After that, he quickly climbed high. At this point, Tom looked more like a cat than ever. After that, his wife named Laura ran to clean up the pile of wool that he took out. There was no other way. Tom just had to find the opportunity to meet the pet shop owner. The next day, Tom tore up all the leaflets of other pet stores, and left only the information of that mysterious pet shop. After that, Tom was also taken to the pet shop, but the owner didn't help him explain. On the contrary, she also told Laura that if Tom didn't listen, she could take him to be sterilized. Hearing that, Tom had to be obedient. But unexpectedly, after that, Laura received a phone call from a man. When she was about to go out, Tom thought maybe he was being cuckolded. He didn't want his wife to go out, so he immediately stole her key. However, Laura said, "If you are still acting like this, I will take you to be sterilized." Hearing that, Tom obediently put down the key. However, Tom still didn't give up. After that, Tom went out to the balcony. He decided to jump off. Finally, Tom knew that the man was actually a real estate broker, and Laura came here just to see the house. Previously, he only focused on his career and ignored his wife's feelings. This made his wife want to leave him. However, his body was still in the hospital. Because of that, Laura didn't want to leave him at this moment. When getting home, he found Rebecca hiding in her room. She was watching a dance video with her dad and cried silently. Seeing this, Tom found many ways to make his daughter happy. At this time, he realized that he spent too little time with his family. From then on, Tom used the identity of a cat to guide his daughter to do her homework, and watched the sunset with his wife. Meanwhile, his son at the company discovered that his subordinate wanted to sell his company. That subordinate even spread rumors that Tom couldn't wake up anymore. Tom read the newspaper and also knew this. After that, he sneaked into his son's file box, and he was brought to the company. Thanks to that, Tom saw his son's efforts and decided to promote him. Then he ran to his office to find the seal, and he wanted to transfer all his shares to his son. But when the subordinate found out, he immediately put it in the shredder. While the subordinate and shareholders thought that everything went according to plan, Tom climbed to the top of the model, and he used it to break the shredder. Hearing the sound, his son immediately ran over and discovered the decision was stamped. After that, the subordinate went to the hospital to confirm that his boss couldn't wake up anymore. And he rushed to Tom's house in order that he tried to convince Lara to give up hope. Seeing that, Tom jumped on the subordinate and tried to use all his strength to scratch him. However, the subordinate didn't know that this obnoxious cat was his boss. Then Tom was locked in a cage. However, Lara also didn't like that subordinate, so she closed the door and kicked him out of the house. At this time, his daughter put him in her bag and sneaked out. His daughter took him to a mysterious pet shop, and when meeting the owner, she said her suspicions. She felt that the cat was her father, although she knew all this couldn't happen. At this moment, the pet shop owner played a song. Tom slowly came to his daughter and held her hand to dance. He used to dance with his daughter this dance. Therefore, Rebecca recognized her father. However, his body in the hospital was getting weaker and weaker. Tom's son got the seal and returned to the company, but he didn't expect that. This evil subordinate called the guard to throw him out. Meanwhile, he also received the news that his father was in critical condition. At this time, Rebecca carried Tom to the hospital. His son came to his hospital bed and blamed himself for his failure. And he also decided to commit suicide by jumping from a building. Knowing that, Tom tried to get out of the bag and immediately ran after his son. But Rebecca called him to dance with her again to prove his identity. At this point, Tom was extremely awkward. He had to choose, one side was his son's life, the other side was his life. And Tom ultimately chose to save his son. He quickly ran to the front of the building, but was caught by the guard when Tom was about to be thrown in the trash. Fortunately, the pet shop owner came to save him in time. After that, she took him into the building by another way. Tom lured the guard to detect something unusual. Then the guard also followed them to the rooftop. However, at this time, his son jumped down. Seeing that, Tom didn't hesitate to bite a piece of wire and jumped down. But because the wire was too short, when falling, he saw his son wearing a backpack with a parachute. And then he flew parallel in front of his son. Tom hastily reminded his son to open the parachute. At this time, the whole building was lit with fireworks. His son also landed safely. He also landed in time. There was suddenly a blinding light appearing. After that, Tom woke up on the hospital bed. His son also got the company's seal and fired the subordinate in front of shareholders. And he also received the news that his father had woken up. The subordinate also received the appropriate punishment. Tom's health was also much better. After that, he took his daughter to the pet store again. The shop took out the cat named Fazzy Pants. From now on, it would live with Tom's family. No matter how busy you are, don't forget to take care of your family. After all, a father's love for his children is eternal.